live to discuss is Republican Congressman Mike McCaul. He's the ranking Republican on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, thanks for joining us. I want to start with the president just a few minutes ago saying that his comments about Putin and not wanting him to remain in power, he was just expressing his personal moral outrage, not a policy change. What is your response to that? You seemed to suggest yesterday with Dana Bash that he was being needlessly provocative in his original comments.
Right, and listen, I went down to the border, Ukraine border, Poland, saw the refugees. I certainly understand the moral outrage that the president must have felt in his emotions when he made that comment. But it seems like every time he goes off script, he causes some international incident here. And to when they say they don't want to be provocative by bringing in MiG jets, and yet when he makes comments like these that are very provocative with respect to Putin, particularly on the heels of these major negotiations that we think are going to be taking place in the next couple of days. So I don't think it was very helpful. And the sad fact is, Jake, it overshadowed pretty much the entire NATO, EU, G7 summit. This is all anybody's talking about.
Yeah, and you agreed with the White House walk back that regime change in Russia, which President Biden reiterated today, is up to the Russian people, not up to the American leadership. But I wonder about that, because if the Russians don't have free and fair elections, the Russian people, if Putin suppresses and even kills those who push for reform, who push for democracy, is it really up to the Russian people? I mean, I'm not pushing for regime change here myself, but it really isn't up to them, is it?
Well, Putin is a dictator under this sort of false democracy. He does control the elections. I predict, we had Condoleezza Rice visit with her at our retreat last weekend. And, these body bags going home, Jake, I mean, 17 to 15,000 Russians killed. And you multiply that by a multiplier of 3 in terms of casualties. The mothers, when they see their sons coming home, this is more than they lost in Afghanistan in their war against the Mujahideen, and it's far more than we lost in Iraq and Afghanistan over 20 years. I think this is going to have a profound impact on the Russian people. The oligarchs are obviously not very happy with Mr. Putin, and I feel he thinks the world is circling in on him, and that's a positive thing. We want change, from within, and with the Russian people rising up against this brutal war criminal.
Do you agree with President Biden when he made the comment that Vladimir Putin is a butcher?
I do. I think he crossed the line when he killed civilians, when he bombed the maternity hospital, when he bombed the children's hospital in Kyiv. I've actually helped facilitate getting these children out of Ukraine into Poland and NATO ally countries. And the thing I worried the most about, Jake, is what's going to come next. But we don't want to escalate the situation. If he's a scorpion backed in a corner and the stinger comes out, he has 2 options: one chemical and one of these short-range tactical nukes. That would be a paradigm shift in this competition, this conflict that could extend it to now a world power conflict.
There's another round of talks being held tomorrow in Istanbul between Russia and Ukraine. Is it worth it, do you think, for Ukraine to agree to a peace process if Zelensky has to cede the Donbass region and pledge that Ukraine will never join NATO? Is that worth it for peace?
Yeah, I really leave that to President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people. This is their decision, not our decision or NATO's decision, or for that matter, it should be Putin's. I think he has agreed that it would be okay to be a neutral country, not a NATO power. But I think the territorial disputes are going to be the part that's going to be very difficult for Zelensky to accept, especially after the mass graves we've seen and the horror images we've seen on the television. I think it'd be very difficult for him to see the Donbass, for him to see Crimea in its entirety. He could talk about no nuclear missiles in his country. This will be a very difficult decision. I agree with your analysts, though, that I think Putin's strategy right now is to divide East Ukraine versus West with the Dnieper River right down the middle. And I think Putin does want those two Donbass independent separatist countries, as he calls them, and as Duma called them. He wants Mariupol, which is a breadbasket port, to control the Black Sea.
Republican Congressman Mike McCaul of Texas, always good to see you. Thank you so much for your thoughts.